Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. I'm your host, Paul Metza. I'm both delighted and honored to have two powerful, artistic, and socially conscious women in the studio today. Winona Laduke is an American environmentalist, economist, and writer known for her work on tribal land claims and preservation, as well as sustainable development. In 1996 and 2000, she ran for vice president as the nominee of the Green Party of the United States on a ticket headed by Ralph Nader. In the 2016 presidential election, she became the first Native American woman to receive an electoral vote for vice president of the United States. She is also the executive director of Honor the Earth, a Native environmental advocacy organization that has played an active role in the Dakota Access Pipeline protests. Keri Pickett is a photographer, author, filmmaker, producer, director, and cancer survivor. I first became aware of her via her great photo book, Love in the 90s, Bibi and Joe, the story of a lifelong love, a granddaughter's portrait. They are joining me in the studio to talk about their film, First Daughter and the Black Snake, that recently appeared at the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Film Festival. And without any further ado, my guests, Winona Laduke and Keri Pickett. Thanks so much for coming today. I'm honored to have you here. Big fans of both of you.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah. Were you, I watched the movie last night. It's, was over, what, about 2-year period, 3-year period?
About 2.5.
Yeah. Keri directed and produced it. Tell us about how the genesis of it, how you met Winona, and how the whole thing started.
Well, I met Winona in 1984. We were both 25 years old, and I had been out at the Black Hills Survival Gathering in 1980 and had my life changed by having an opportunity to learn about the true American history from the indigenous perspective. And so I felt like I started some really fabulous friendships out in South Dakota, and I wanted to meet people in Minnesota. And so I asked a friend who lived in and around Winona's reservation, at the White Earth Reservation, to introduce me to somebody. He said, I know just the person for you to meet. And so he introduced me to Winona, and she was wonderful, took me all around, and I have these beautiful pictures of her, and there's even one of the two of us, and that set in motion a friendship that has been professional for many, many years, because I photographed her as a journalist. When she ran for president with Ralph Nader, I worked with Margaret Nelson on a story for People magazine. And when she was chosen to be Ms. Magazine Woman of the Year, I did her portrait. When she fought the genetic patenting of wild rice, I followed her to the Capitol. And so I've been trying to keep my eye on her for many years. And then when Enbridge announced that they were going to do the pipeline in 2013, I knew that she would be facing her most formidable opponent, and I wanted to see what would happen. I care about that region very much, and so I care about the issue, and also I care about Winona, and I just wanted to see what she was going to do. I was very curious.
So this relationship is over 3 decades old. I'm sure you're great friends besides having a professional relationship. I've known Winona for years. I've been a big fan. I voted for you and Ralph in 2000. I played an event for the Nader Laduke presidential team at Northrop Auditorium. And you can, if you're interested in the environment and progressive causes, there's no way you don't know about the great Winona Laduke.
That's right.
So, well, no, it's true. I mean, when I was watching the movie last night, right, you know, I do what I do. I'm a guitar player. I play some gigs. I do some benefits. I do this and that. But Winona, she's all over the country. She's giving speeches. She's writing books. She's at protests. She's leading the charge. Then she's got 6 kids and this gorgeous garden with all that beautiful corn. And I'm going like, how do you find the time in the day to get this all done?
I'm busy.
I can tell me
I
about it.
get up early. I like to get up early. I like to write in the morning.
What time do you get up?
Usually around 6 I get up, and I like it because it's quiet and no one's up. You know, in my house, it's like kind of like putz around, drink my coffee, do a little thinking. you know, and then I usually get my writing done and I think about what I'm doing, and then, you know, but this last few years has been kind of like super fast. I feel like you're like landing airplanes or something, like everything is moving at you so fast. And so it's been a real test of my stamina and my ability to, like, you know, not, you know, just keep going on it.
Right.
I mean,
And how do
not
you...
recommended for those who are not robust, you know? It's like, yeah.
Well, and how do you keep your spirit up? Now we, you know, we can jump kind of towards the end where you had the, when Enbridge pulled out of the pipeline at one time, and then they switched over to Standing Rock. They want to put the Dakota pipeline in, and then they want to do this Line 3. So we could talk more about that, but where do you, you kind of have some down moments, Winona, when you go, what keeps the fire and the faith?
Well, let's just be honest. I mean, first, we live in this beautiful place. I wake up and I live, you know, on a lake in the woods, and you can still drink the water from a spring right by my house. I mean, most of the world doesn't have that gift. I got, you know, wild rice that grows on the lake. I can get sugar from a tree, and the world is beautiful. You know, where I live, and I look out, and I'm living in the same place as my greats lived. You know, and I'm doing basically the same thing. I feel like the Creator gave me a good life, and I want to keep it. And then, you know, so a lot of this is about, I feel like this is the way we're supposed to live, and I feel like this corporation's proposal is an interruption in the perfect world that we have, and is really a bad idea. Not just for me, but for like all of us, you know. And so I look out there, and then I'm also privileged, as you've noted. I've, you know, traveled the world. I mean, the world, not compared to Miss Pickett here, but I've traveled a lot of places compared to anybody on my reservation.
Right.
And, you know, I go out there and I see like this, people have a tough situation.
Right.
You know, people have a lot of tough situation. People are in war, people are homeless, people are hungry, people don't have water, you know, people are afraid for their lives. And I feel like I'm in a place where I can do my best to make sure that that doesn't happen. And, you know, I see this situation other people in, and I'm like, you know, I'm going to do this. And they're in a lot tougher situation than me, and they're still trying hard, you know. So I'm like, I'm in a good situation. I'm going to do it.
And life on the res is not easy in all these, you know, reservations, too. I mean, they've got their own problems besides the greater world. So it makes so much sense to me. Clean water, good idea, you know. Clean air, good idea. It's just, you know, it's kind of how the world has been around for as many years as it has been.
Yeah, it's been an important part of life, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. About all you need, right? The history of, you know, those lakes and rivers, those were the highways back in the day.
Yeah, the Anishinaabe people.
Yeah.
And everybody. I mean,
yeah.
You know, I seems like when I was coming down, I started trying to teach my grandchildren to look at the infrastructure along the rivers, you know. Because there's, and I was, you know, when in my travel, you see that, because there was like, I was in New England. I always like that name, New England. It's like not that new, you know, but they had all these mills, you know, and the rivers were also the, you know, foundation of, you know, the power. And, you know, that was a whole different kind of power than the fossil fuel era. And there was certainly a lot of destruction of the big dam projects, but at the same time, it's interesting how, you know, people don't think about how much the rivers and the water have defined our lives, you know, and our cultural practice, and our, you know, our cities and our economies. And, you know, we have this mother lode of the world's water here. And I feel like it's really a good place, and we have a responsibility. I refer to it as a covenant with the Creator to keep our part of the deal, which is we get to keep hanging out here and we'll do the right thing. Right.
That's a great way of looking at it. It's really simple and an easy way to explain it in this world where you need 10 words or less to get the point across. Now, Keri, tell us about actually doing the movie. How many people, how many cameras did you have? You probably shot some yourself. You know.
Well,
an understatement.
Yeah.
When I started the film, I didn't really know I was starting the film. It took me a while to commit, because I had just finished making The Fabulous Ice Age, and I knew that I wanted, which is a documentary film, it's on Netflix.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so it's a 100-year history of dancing on ice and one man's quest to save the history. And the person trying to save the history is my uncle. who I share a photography studio with over on East Hennepin Avenue. And I became a filmmaker to make that film. I learned how basically self-taught. I did a.
How old's your uncle?
He's going to be 87 in July.
Wow, I'd love to have him on the show.
Yeah, oh, he's awesome.
Yeah.
He's super cool. And so when I was making that film, oftentimes I would wake up in the night and I would be going, "You're making a film about figure skating. Why aren't you following Winona?"
Right.
You know, but at that time, she was doing epic work. She's always done epic work. But I really feel that once she started facing Enbridge and starting to save this watershed in northern Minnesota for all of us, I recognized that this was a huge story, and that what she would do would lay a path for others to follow. And so I started following her. She had a dream, I think she can tell you about how to stop the oil, which was with a spiritual horse ride. And so in 2014, I started going to the Public Utilities Commission meetings and following the efforts of the tribe, and then I filmed her ride in 2014. And I did a 1-hour cut edit of that ride. And then I followed her to the People's Climate March in New York City in 2014, and I saw that Indigenous leadership was crucial to the 500,000 people marching in that march. And so I kind of like a light bulb went off, and I was just like, oh, well, that's just that one ride is not enough. Have to go much deeper. And so it was really at that time that I committed. And so I committed, and I basically attached myself to Winona. And I spent really 2 years filming all by myself.
Wow.
There's a couple of scenes where I had a young woman, Keegan Zavi, help me do some filming, and then I got some footage from somebody who works with Winona, and then every now and then I would hand my iPhone to somebody and just sort of say, you know, could you film this for me? And so a couple of Winona's family members have second camera credits in the film.
So some of this is actually done on an iPhone.
Just a few shots,
Yeah.
just a few. It's a very difficult thing to do a film. I can't tell you how tough it is. And I don't think anybody has any idea when you see that footage on screen how many hours are behind every single minute.
And now we'll watch a snippet of First Daughter and the Black Snake.
Looks like a really old book, Mom. Yeah, it looks like last century.
We're still preoccupied with the early photos of Winona. They're so funny.
We're in a situation which is kind of called extreme. It's extreme behavior. That's when you no longer want conventional oil, and instead you want to go get oil from the tar sands in Canada, where you got to basically destroy an entire ecosystem the size of Florida to shove it in some pipelines to down here, or you want to frack North Dakota, put a bunch of radioactive water and destroyed aquifers out there and see how people can live, or you want to do some other crazy stuff.
Learn more about the nonprofit conservation group Minnesota Trout Unlimited. Education, science, and support. Here they were clearing invasive non-native buckthorn brush along the south branch of the Vermilion River, the only trophy brown trout fishery in a major metropolitan area. Learn more about restoring trout streams and trout fishing at mntu.org and at the Twin Cities chapter website, twincitiestu.org.
Welcome back to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metza. My guests tonight, Keri Pickett and Winona Laduke. Winona, tell us about the dream.
So I let's just say I've spent most of my life, it seems like, kind of battling stupid ideas. I will call like a lot of mines and dam projects and power plants and nuclear waste dumps. You know, Excel's fabulous nuclear waste dump in the middle of the Skull Valley Shoshone, the Skull Valley Goshen Reservation. So I seem to understand these are coming, and I said, this pipeline project's coming our way, and I really didn't have any idea. And I saw all these pipelines kind of coming our way, and so I had this dream. It was a recurring dream that we should ride our horses against the current of the oil. Always like against the current, and put our power, our prayers down, and our horsepower, down. A horse nation was going to do that. And so I kept dreaming that. And so I'm a horse rider, but I'm kind of like a little cowgirl, not like a big cowgirl.
Right.
And so I was a little more ambitious than I had thought. And so first I thought it was for the Lakotas. So I went out to Pine Ridge and I told the White Plume family that does the Wounded Knee Memorial Ride that I thought that this was something they should do to oppose the Keystone Pipeline, the KXL. And they nodded. So that's very good, that's very good idea, very good dream you had there. Let us think about that.
Right.
And so I was like, okay. So I was like, you just let me know. I'll help you on your media. I'll raise some money. I'll, get you some help. I'll ride a little bit with you. And then I waited. And then I realized, I was like, what's that called? The burden of dreams. Just about the same time they announced this pipeline coming towards us.
That's a great title for a song, by the way.
Yeah, it's like they announced this pipeline coming towards us.
Right.
And I had no idea that was coming towards us. It wasn't announced before that. And they kind of, broadsided me at that. And I said, or blindsided me, and I said, well, that must be what this is for. And so then I rustled up literally every Indian person in northern Minnesota who I knew rode horse. And I was like, let's ride. And then just before that, I went out and bought a horse trailer, and my kids were like, you don't have a truck to pull the horse trailer, Mom? I was like, but there's Craigslist. I will find the truck.
Right.
I will find the horse trailer, which is like my new finding. I found at Craigslist. You could find anything. And then I was prepared, and then we started riding. And so we rode, actually at that time, the proposed route of the Sandpiper, the Line 3, which is in place and super old, and we rode the Keystone Pipeline. And we actually, out at Standing Rock this year, we rode from Standing Rock to Tioga, which is where the oil is coming from for the Dakota Access Pipeline. I said, I'm gonna just ride this, and so we did that.
Wow.
So,
I did a little short film on that. You can see that on Vimeo.
Yeah.
Now,
That's some epic, a lot of epic riding for a girl who was just kind of like a rider with a little R.
Did you ride, Keri? Did you ride at
I
all?
did. The first, I could not make it to the 2013 ride because I was finishing my first film. And that was really difficult for me. But the 2014 film, in 2014 I rode, and
She's good. She's a good rider. Plus she rides and takes footage. Like
Wow.
I just kind of like ride, and I don't like to do anything like that.
Right.
I just like to ride and pray or just ride. Like it's like my moment. But Pickett was like filming and riding.
Wow. And I know, Winona, with Honor the Earth, it's all about all these organizations, whether you're trying to save the environment, save a building like I tried to do at the Guthrie Theater years ago, or you're trying to do a movie. You're not only doing the work, but you're always trying to raise money. So you just jumped right in. You start filming Winona with this concept for the film, First Daughter and the Black Snake. So how are you getting your money together for any of the young filmmakers out there? They got to know what you have to do to get her done.
well, I spent 8 years doing The Fabulous Ice Age, and then placing that film on Netflix. I got some of my money back.
Wow.
Not, maybe half of what it cost me to make the film
Right.
back over a 3-year period.
So you stuck it
And
right
so
into the new movie.
I had an offer for a theatrical distribution, actually. So a very prominent distributor offered me a 10-city theatrical opening, but I knew that all the money would then go into the theatrical opening, and if I went with Netflix, I would have a chance to be able to have some kind of an income so I could film Winona. And
tell
so
us
I
again-
was really self-funded throughout all of it, and then at the very end, in order to do post-production, I needed help. And my mother helped me along the way.
We will be back with Keri Pickett and Winona Laduke after this break.
What can you do with so much space? The Solar Arts Building in Northeast Minneapolis. A masterpiece of exposed brick, wooden beams, hardwood floors, and natural light, this unique multi-use space is perfect for a variety of events. To literally top it off, there are over 100 solar panels on the roof, making the Solar Arts Building self-sustainable. You've got the need, we've got the space. The Solar Arts Building, 711 Northeast 15th Avenue in beautiful Northeast Minneapolis. Give them a call at 763-234-5069 or send a message to mike@solarartsbuilding.com.
Welcome back to the Wall of Power Radio Hour with my guest, filmmaker Keri Pickett and environmental activist Winona Laduke. I want to ask about your mother because you're half Jewish.
Uh-huh. Did you see the yoga scene?
Yes, it was phenomenal. She was kicking your ass.
She totally kicked my ass in the yoga scene.
But tell us about your mom and dad. That's an interesting story because you grew up on the coast, right?
Yeah, I grew up in a small town in Southern Oregon. I want to just go back one step and say, so we had this spiritual ride.
Yeah.
And I was really, I felt like bigger than me. But what I want to say is that one day after we finished our fourth ride, Enbridge announced the cancellation of the Sandpiper.
Right.
So, I was like, thank you, Creator.
Right.
I was wondering about that, but I did it. And so, I'm going to keep riding on line through. I'm going to keep riding until they're out of the corridor. We're not done. But I just want to say is you have to have faith.
Right.
You have to have faith.
Right.
And so that was this my life, and I think all of our lives is kind of a test of your faith. And in my case, I was like, I'm going to do that. And so, to your question, I was born in East LA. My mother and father met. My mother is a really gifted artist. She's a muralist, a painter. She's 84, and her paintings are traveling shows everywhere. She was living in Mexico. She came from the Bronx, first generation Ukrainian Jew, from working class family.
Right.
And had been in, art school, met Paul Robeson in her. Yeah, I'm telling you, my mother was at art camp, and Paul Robeson was there, and Charles White was there.
Wow, we got to get her on the show.
Yeah, my mother is beyond cool.
Wow.
And then my mother decided she was going to go to Mexico and be a muralist. So she lived in San Miguel Allende for 3 years and painted and was a muralist. A kind of like a vista position or something like that. And then actually Diego Rivera came to see my mother.
Really?
Right, so that's my mother.
Wow.
My mother's incredibly gifted and was a waitress in the bar that Louis Armstrong was playing in. That's my mother.
Wow.
So it's totally ahead of her time, and then she moved back to New York, and she was, being an artist, and my father showed up having hitchhiked from White Earth with some wild rice that he was selling. And because he was going to go to Hollywood. And he, I have these pictures of him that my mother gave me, he hitchhiked across the country, in a full regalia.
Wow.
And
with wild rice.
With wild rice. And, he came to my mother's door looking for someone else and saw my mother. And they instantly fell in love. And,
wow.
And, so then my parents left before I was born, but they fell in love, and then they moved to Los Angeles, where my dad then became an extra in the Westerns. And as you can see in the movie, my mother says that my grandfather did not speak to her for 7 years.
Wow.
And then I remember, but I said the other thing is that when he finally met me, he was like my best friend. And he was like someone to play checkers with.
Right.
Someone to follow him around while he was painting.
Right.
And because he was a house painter. And my grandmother was a pocketbook maker. A union pocketbook maker, and the International Ladies Garment Workers Union.
Oh.
And so I come from, union, working class people. My parents separated when I was young, and my mother moved to a small town in Southern Oregon called Ashland. which is a really kind of an upscale town, and was at the university as an art professor for many years and just recently retired. And so I was raised there. My stepfather is Peter Westergaard, nice Norwegian. Right, so I was actually raised by a Norwegian dad, which is probably why I find everybody in Minnesota so easy to get along with, because they were actually originally from Minnesota, and they moved to the Bay Area.
Would you like some coffee and a biscuit while you're here?
No, but I got the, you know, the, and so you know, and he was an entomologist and ran an agricultural experiment station. So I was basically raised in kind of a farming and orchard and a small town. And then I went off to school. Like, my one ticket out was really to get into a college, and so I went off to Harvard when I was 16, and well, 17.
You started college when you were 16 years
16
old?
is when I skipped a grade, and so I actually started when I was 17. I started college, but I was admitted at 16, and I went off and you know, then became politically more active. You know, early on though, because it was the anti-nuclear movement.
Right.
And so, you know, so I used to come here, and you know, I know where most of the nuclear power plants are in this country. I know about, you know, Prairie Island, and you know, I don't know why no one speaks of Monticello. You know, I'm not sure why that's any safer than any of the other plants. And was not too pleased to see Westinghouse declared bankruptcy 2 weeks ago. So I'm thinking to myself, like, how many nuclear power plants did Westinghouse build? And who's liable for them now? I would assume NSP is. But like, that's like a concern, which is one of my big concerns with these big corporations, is that they just go bankrupt.
Right.
And then they leave the American taxpayers, and they leave all of us with all the liability and all the things we got to worry about, like nuclear waste and, you know, hydrocarbons in our water. And you know, so to me, this whole battle is largely, you know, the same kind of epic battle that my good friend Ralph Nader has waged, which is kind of, do the rights of corporations supersede the rights of people? And you know, we've turned into a country which, you know, obviously seen out in North Dakota, you know, the rights of corporations do, and you will shoot people for a corporation's right. And that's like what I don't want to see in Minnesota. Problem in civil society.
When did you end up then in White Earth? How did you end up?
When I graduated from college. You know, I've been out there a few times, and Vernon Belcourt, who you know.
Yes.
You know, knew Vernon Belcourt.
Clyde's a better friend.
Right, but they are actually relatives of mine, and I would see them. You know, as a young woman, I worked for the American Indian movement. I was kind of their research girl. You know, because I mean, you could, you know, tell I've spent a lot of time on energy policy research.
Right.
And so I worked a lot on uranium mining and coal strip mining. And then, you know, I was working at Navajo, and then I was working out in South Dakota at the Black Hills Alliance, fighting the big uranium mining proposals in the Black Hills. And that's where I first, you know, Keri and I first, you know, were in the same place. But one day Vernon said, why don't you move home? Why don't you move home? Why don't you move home and be with your people? So I moved back when I got out of college in 1981. I took a job as principal of the Circle of Life School, you know, which was like, you know, I was 23 years old. I was like slightly older than some of those kids.
Right.